Hello students, today we are going to understand the interrupt structure in 8085 microprocessor. So interrupt has its own separate structure or a design through which interrupt process can be understood or executed. So this is a particular diagram through which we can understand how the interrupt structure can be looks like in real hardware. This is just a block diagram, not a real hardware, but I'll try to make you understand how interrupt is going to function or a process. So remember the process of interrupt. Whenever any interrupt occurs, the first thing is the occurrence of interrupt, or it is received on the particular pin of an interrupt. Next thing is interrupt is going to be sensed by CPU or identified by CPU that interrupt has now accepted by CPU. The second step. The third step is interrupt. Whenever any interrupt occurs, a particular code is to be executed which is written on a vector location of each interrupt. So the third step is to execute the ISR or code when any interrupt occurs, which is written on vector location of any interrupt. So that is the third step in the procedure or the process of interrupt. And the next step, the fourth step, is the after executing the ISR, it need to return back to the interrupted location where microprocessor was interrupted or suspended by the interrupt signal. So these are the four steps which is usually gets an execution, or these four steps are executed whenever any interrupt occurs, right? So we have seen the types of interrupt as well: hardware interrupt, software interrupt, edge trigger, level triggered, vectored, non-vectored, right? Maskable, non-maskable. So all those things can be understood here in this diagram. What are the types, how they are sensed, how they are serviced, how their vector locations are going to execute the ISR, right? So we'll talk about these interrupts one by one. So let us talk about the trap. So this is the trap interrupt. Trap is a non-maskable interrupt. Remember, trap cannot be ignored or it cannot be masked. So that is why we call the trap as a non-maskable interrupt, and it is vectored, right? And its vector location is 0024. Here you can see. Let me zoom it if it is not proper visible, right? So here you can see the vector location 0024, which is associated with interrupt trap. So trap is non-maskable whenever a trap occurs, and we have seen trap is a edge triggered, positive edge triggered. So whenever any positive edge occurs on trap pin of 8085, the trap interrupt is received and sensed by CPU immediately, and then it directly switches to the vector location and executes the ISR, and after executing it return back to the interrupted location. It's quite simple to understand this architecture of trap or the execution of this trap. Coming back next to this two another interrupts, RST 6.5 and RST 5.5. So these are level triggered, right? So whenever any leveled pulse is received on these two interrupts, it can be received or it can be sensed by CPU. So here you can see mask. So these are three masks available here. First one is RST 7.5, second one is for RST 6.5, third one is for RST 7.5. Remember, in sim instruction we have set interrupt masks for three interrupts, for RST 7.5, 6.5 and 5.5. So these are the masking bits which is going to create a mask for these three interrupts, right? So if a particular mask bit is set, for any particular interrupt using same instruction, so this interrupt will be masked, right? So if masking is 1, you can see a bubble here, so this bubble will make this 1 as 0. So if any 0 is input to any AND gate, it creates a 0 here, or we can say disabling this line. So if this line is disabled, then this interrupt is not going to switch to this particular vector location, or we can say the interrupt process is not going to work for RST 5.5 because mask bit for RST 5.5 is set, right? Similarly with RST 6.5, if we are going to set the masking bit for 6.5, then this 1 creates a 0 in this AND gate, and if there is a 1 0 available in AND gate and it is going to ignore all other inputs, then this line will be disabled and interrupt is not going to switch on this particular location. So interrupt is not going to work, right? So this is how a masking bit is going to work for these two. Similarly with RST 7.5 also, if masking bit is set, it will create a 0 here. If in AND gate, if 1 0 is there, then the output is going to be 0, or this line is going to be disabled. So this is how interrupt can be masked or ignored or disabled. So interrupt can be received, but it cannot be sensed by CPU because this mask bit is set 1, and because of this mask bit, interrupt is not going to switch to this vector location and not going to execute ISR. So interrupt process is not going to be executed for these corresponding interrupts, these 3 interrupts, right? So this is how this masking bit is going to work here. Okay, let us talk about this RST 7.5. The RST 7.5 is a positive edge triggered interrupt. So edge, if any edge, positive edge is received by RST 7.5, it can be, we can say that interrupt has been received, and we know that trap is highest priority interrupt than RST 7.5. So if microprocessor is executing trap, suppose a microprocessor is executing trap interrupts or servicing the trap, in that case if RST 7.5 occurs, then it need to wait until trap is serviced completely. So if a positive edge is occurred, it will be lost after a moment, and during a particular time period a trap is not going to be completed serviced, so this particular edge will be lost. So for this reason, that we don't want to waste, we don't want to lose this interrupt. Once it is received, there is a D flip flop which is going to lock the this input which is received through RST 7.5. So if this positive edge is received, it will be locked by D flip flop here, right, until the trap is serviced, of course. So here you can see this D flip flop can be cleared if reset is done, if microprocessor is reset here, or RST 7.5 interrupt is recognized. If suppose if RST 7.5 is identified and another RST 7.5 is occurred consecutively, one after the another. So if first interrupt is recognized, right, in that case if they both are 1, it will create a if both are 1, it will create a 0 over here, which is going to clear this interrupt, right. So this D flip flop has a functionality, a simple functionality to log this input interrupt, and this status or this log status can be cleared if they both conditions are matched, right. And if this interrupt is logged, then it can be transpassed over here, because D latch is a transparent latch. If the status is 1, this 1 can be transparent. So if this is 1, and then masking is disabled, then it will create a 1 here, it will have already 1 here, right? We are not going to talk about this here, we'll talk about this particular line in a moment. So suppose if this is 1, then it will create a 1 here, and this interrupt vector location will be activated, or a ISR at this particular location will be executed if these 3 lines are 1. So this line will be enabled. So RST 7.5 will be working, right? Coming next to this INTR, which is a least priority interrupt, which is a little different in execution because this is non-vectored interrupt. It has multiple vector locations. So let us see. And this is the interrupt enable flip-flop that we have explained it earlier, that there is an interrupt enable flip-flop which can be set, which can be activated or set if EI instruction is executed. So this is the EI. If EI is 1, so S is 1, right? And then suppose R is 0. So in that case, S is 1 and R is 0. So this Q will have 1. So we can call that interrupt process is enabled. So all the interrupts are enabled using this EI instruction. So EI instruction is going to set this flip-flop and create a 1 over here. So a 1 over here will enable all these lines and this line of INTR as well, right? Suppose if DI instruction is executed, suppose there is a 0. Suppose a DI instruction, which is nothing but disable interrupt, if DI instruction is executed, then DI is 1, right? And suppose if this DI is 1, and whatever the status of this, it is not going to matter whether it is 0 or 1, it is not going to matter. If DI is 1, then output will definitely be 1. So R will be 1, right? So if R is 1 and S is 0, so in that case, if R is 1 and this S is 0, in that case the Q will have 0. So if this is 0, in that case, if any input is 0 for AND gate, the output will have 0. The output 0 will disable these lines and this line also and this line also. All these lines will be disabled because this 0 will be forwarded here and here and here as well. So this 0 will create a 0 here, and this line will be disabled. So if these lines are disabled, all these interrupts are not going to work. Similarly, if a 0 is here, this 0 will be inputted here, and this entire system or this particular process is going to be 0, and it is not going to work. So DI instruction creates R1 as 0 and Q is 0, which in turn disable this interrupt, this interrupt, this interrupt and this interrupt. So all these 4 interrupt process can be disabled with a single DI instruction, and all these 4 interrupt process can be enabled with this single DI EI instruction, right? So this is how EI and DI can set or reset the particular interrupt enable flip-flop. Okay. Next thing is, in case of INTR interrupt, as we have seen that INTR is a non-vectored interrupt. So here you can see get RST code from external hardware. Remember that we have explained earlier that INTR instruction requires RST code. So there are 8 vector locations associated with INTR interrupt, starting from RST0, RST1 up to RST8. 8 RST codes are available. So each RST code is going to fetch one vector location. each RST code has its own separate vector location. So whenever any INTR interrupt occurs, suppose this is also 1 and this is also 1, so there will be a external hardware required, which is going to help us to fetch any one RST code, and each RST code has its own fixed vector location which is going to be fetched, because whenever any interrupt occurs, we need the vector location, one fixed vector location on which a particular ISR is going to be written. So then we can say that the INTR is serviced, meaning the particular ISR at a particular vector location is executed or completed its task. So we can say the INTR is serviced. So to complete the service of INTR interrupt, we need to identify one location among these 8 locations, right? So that is why INTR interrupt is little different, because this is a non-vectored. I hope you must have got a little idea how how this interrupt process gets an execution. Okay, now we'll see the next interrupt, this particular INTR, because INTR is quite complex as well and a little different as compared to other interrupts. So we will see how INTR is executed. Okay, so INTR operation, the first thing is, if we want to use INTR interrupt, then the interrupt process should be enabled by writing EI instruction in the main program. Obviously we want to enable the interrupt enable flip-flop. So this is the interrupt enable flip-flop which we want to enable, and then Q will be 1. So Q is 1, then this is going to work, this is going to work, and this is also going to work. Here we are only concentrating on INTR. Okay, so if this particular flip-flop is enabled, then the INTR is going to be in working status. Okay, so EI must be written in the very beginning of, or we can say in main program. So EI is written, so interrupt is enable flip-flop is enabled, right? When microprocessor is executing any program, it checks the INTR line. So microprocessor used to check this INTR line after each instruction if we are enabling this interrupt enable flip-flop. If this interrupt enable flip-flop is disabled, then microprocessor need not to check this INTR line, right? If this is enabled, then microprocessor check that INTR has occurred or it does not occur. If suppose it occurs, right, INTR is high, in that case what are we going to call the situation? That interrupt is received, right? And because interrupt is enabled, the microprocessor complete the current instruction and then disables the interrupt enable flip-flop and sends a signal called INT. So why this IE flip-flop is disabled, right? We have enabled it, but once it is received, once the INTR is received, and then it is disabled. It is disabled. So why it is disabled after receiving it? Because once INTR is received, we do not want other interrupt to disturb this entire process. So for that reason, this interrupt enable flip-flop is disabled until INTR fetch its vector location and execute ISR and then resume back. This interrupt flip-flop must be disabled, or we can say these interrupts will be disabled, right? And then a signal called INTA is sent out from microprocessor to the external device which is sending the INTR signal. So this is called interrupt acknowledgement, which is active low in nature. So how this INTA signal is going to play an important role here? This INTA is used to insert an RST instruction or call instruction through this external hardware, right? So whenever when the situation is 1 and 1, after that we are creating a 0 over here just to ensure that another interrupt does not disturb this entire this process. And then once this signal 1 1 is received in INT R line, microprocessor sends INT A bar or active low INT A, interrupt acknowledgement signal, which is sent here, which is having a particular hardware to get the particular RST code, right? So this INT A signal is going to help or enable this hardware to get any of this one vector location. If this INT A is not sent by CPU, then it will disabled. If it is disabled, then vector location cannot be fetched. So in that case, INT A must be sent by CPU, and it can be sent by CPU once these two are 1, and then it will be enabled, so that we can have one RST code, and then vector location can be identified, so interrupt can be serviced now. Okay. Then what? Then next step is when microprocessor receives RST, right? So once INT A is received, then RST code is inserted to the microprocessor. So it will receive an RST code. Now vector location is identified. So if vector location is identified, then microprocessor is going to switch to ISR, a particular vector location where ISR is written. So while switching to the ISR, it is going to save the memory address of next instruction on the stack, because after executing the ISR, it need to return, so that return address must be saved in stack. So it is similarly it is exactly similar like a call instruction. So RST instruction is exactly the same. RST is exactly the same as call instruction in process, because call instruction also saves that next instruction's address in the stack, just like the RST instruction. So RST is nothing but a call instruction. So the next step is, assuming that the task is performed, assuming that the ISR is completed in subroutine, right? The subroutine which is known as interrupt service routine, which is done. Next one, the interrupt service routine should have EI instruction at the end. Remember that in previous stages we have disabled the interrupt enable flip-flop. Now when the process is completed, process of executing or servicing the servicing this INTR interrupt is completed, then EI instruction is written at the end of the subroutine, just to enable the interrupt enable flip-flop again, so that another interrupts can be received now. So at the end of subroutine, the RET instructions must be written, obviously, because we want to return to the interrupted location, right? So RET instruction is going to fetch the saved address in the stack. It is going to fetch those address and load it into program counter. So the program execution can be resumed to the location where it was interrupted, right? So these are the RST codes, hex code. As I have told you earlier, INTR instruction has 8 vector locations. So each of 8 vector locations has its own hex code, or we can say RST code, this one. So you can see there is a gap of 8 bit. If you see, observe, there is a gap of 8 bit, right? So usually such interrupts which are non vectored have a gap of 8 or a gap of 4. So here this is a code. This is an external hardware. So this external hardware is nothing but this one, because this external hardware is going to help us to get RST code. So where is this external hardware? So if I elaborate this, if I expand this, this external hardware looks like this, or maybe similarly similar to this hardware, or maybe little different than this one. The main functionality, the main objective here is to identify the RST code. So here you can see enable signal will be coming here, the interrupt enable signal, right, and this is a grounded, so this will create a 0 and rest all become 1 1 1 1 1. So this creates a EF. So EF, this is the EF. So RST5 has a code EF which is going to have a vector location 0028. So when this EF is received on data bus of microprocessor, then microprocessor will come to know that the called location is 0028 and the ISR is going to be executed at this location. So the vector location is identified now with the help of this hardware. And remember that we have explained earlier that INTA pulse is sent from microprocessor which is connected to enabling this particular hardware. So if INTA pulse is sent, then this entire circuit will be enabled and this particular RST code will be shared on these data lines. And when INTA pulse is going to be sent, when the INTR signal is received, right, and then INTA acknowledgement is sent so that hardware can be enabled and a particular vector location can be identified with this RST5 code. So this is how INTA signal is going to function. So these are the interrupts these are the interrupts which is going to function INT, R, trap, RST 5.5, 6.5 and 7.5. So they are quite different with each other, and the objective is simple here is to execute an ISR at these particular vector locations, right. I hope we understood how the interrupt gets an execution and how the interrupt process is working. So thank you for now.